So today I'd like to talk about boundaries when you have cancer, because if you're like me, before diagnosis, you probably didn't know what that word meant for you. Not really. We like to say that we have boundaries, but how many of us actually do? Maybe you were someone who just absorbed things, other people's feelings, other people's needs, other people's discomfort. And then we get told we have cancer, and suddenly you need multiple boundaries, often overnight, with zero training and zero idea of how to put them in place. Nobody prepares you for this part. They prepare you for the treatment schedule that you're going to undertake, the side effects, and maybe even sometimes they prepare you for some of the emotional stuff. But nobody sits down with you and says, hey, by the way, everybody in your life and the internet is about to have an opinion on your illness, and you are going to have to learn how to say no. And if you're anything like me, this might be a skill that you have in your work life or had in your work life or with certain people, but it might not be one that you're comfortable with when it comes to those who feel they have a right to you in your time post-diagnosis. Because people show up when you're sick, not always physically, but they definitely show up with opinions, with advice. Have you tried X, Y, and Z? Or my relative had exactly the same thing and they just stayed positive and they were totally fine. I even had people tell me about their pets who'd had my type of cancer, which is distressing in itself. And so you're just left there sitting, thinking, you didn't ask for this. You don't have the bandwidth to manage other people's feelings about your cancer right now. You barely have the bandwidth for your own feelings. And here's what nobody warns you about, and it's the guilt. At first, you might feel like you owe everybody access to you, like being sick means you have to be available, like you have to be grateful for every visitor, every thinking of you text, every unsolicited advice about juice cleanses or positive thinking or some miracle diet that somebody's neighbours tried. And you might be thinking that saying no makes you difficult, ungrateful even. I certainly did. Like, people are doing you a favour by caring, and who are you to turn that away? It seems ungrateful. But here's what we eventually all figure out, and the sooner the better. And this is this: having cancer shouldn't put you on a constant duty. You don't owe anyone your energy just because they showed up with concern. And I know that can sound difficult. Concern is not a blank check to you and your time after your diagnosis. So what my boundaries look like? Well, for you, it might look like small, specific things. So for example, you don't want to talk about it today, or no, somebody can't come to an appointment with you. You want it just to be you and your doctor or you and your partner. Or no, you don't want to hear about their relative's diagnosis right now. Even if they mean well, and most people do, no, you're not going to perform being brave for them, just so that they can feel more comfortable. It might look like not replying to a text for 2 days and not feeling guilty about it, which again is very difficult to do. It might look like telling your partner, hey, is there any chance you can just be the filter for today? Tell people I'm resting. It might look like leaving group texts or saying, I love you, but I just can't talk about this right now. But it can also look like boundaries around the decisions, not just conversations. As I said before, people will inevitably have opinions about your treatment, and they'll be strong ones. And you have to learn to say, look, I appreciate that you care, but this is between me and my medical team, without feeling like you've got to over-explain yourself or justify every choice like you're the one who's on trial. And this is why it's so hard. And the hard part is that when you're sick, you already feel like you've lost control of so much of your body, your schedule, and even your future. So the idea of also pushing back against people who love you can feel like too much. I know it can. Like you're the one causing conflict on top of everything else. But it's actually the opposite. Boundaries aren't causing you a problem. They're protecting the one thing that you as a person with cancer still have control over. And that's how you spend your limited energy. And something interesting happens once you start setting these boundaries. The people who really love you, they won't need an explanation. They'll just adjust. A relative might start texting instead of calling you because you told them that calls are hard some days. And it's amazing how much of a relief it is if you get a message that ends with the words, "You don't need to reply." It feels great. A friend might stop asking, "How are you?" and start asking, "Do you want space or company today?" Because one of your boundaries is that you told them that question is easier for you to answer and answer honestly. But it's inevitable that some people will push back against your boundaries. They'll keep calling after you said that texting was better. They'll keep bringing up the diet stuff after you said you didn't want to discuss it. And honestly, that tells you something too. Not about you, but about them. What actually helps here is giving yourself real permission to protect your energy because it's a scarce, precious thing at this point in time. Stop treating your time and attention like it's an infinite resource that you keep having to hand out to whoever asks. Try thinking of it almost like a ration. You only have so much of this today, so who actually gets some of it? So if you're feeling sick and you're exhausted from managing everyone else's feelings about your illness, that's not selfish. That's not ungrateful. That is you finally putting yourself first at the one time of your life where that's not optional, it's a necessity. You don't owe anybody access to you, not your time, not your energy, not your explanation. So let me know how you try to use boundaries and whether people respect them. And more importantly, what would you say to our cancer community if they find putting these safeguards in place is challenging or makes them feel really guilty? Take care and I'll see you in the next video.